There is a new day dawning in East Africa as the sights and sounds of the jungle repeat their familiar cycles. A continent rich in wildlife and covered in rugged terrain. The inhabitants are traditional people, as diverse as the land they live in. It is God's creation in all of its beauty. Into this kaleidoscope of cultures, with all their spiritual and physical needs, Nazarene Mission Aviation has been called to serve. Each flight flown by Nazarene Mission Aviation requires extensive planning as the pilots travel into remote areas with limited resources. A flight clearance for each country entered must be obtained from the governing authority, the chart studied for prominent checkpoints, meticulous flight time and fuel calculations carefully planned, and all the necessary supplies packed for a trip into the bush. Nazarene Mission Aviation uses the Cessna Turbo 210 for reaching remote areas safely and efficiently. This aircraft is ideal for bush operations and long-distance flying, with the ability to land on unimproved short airstrips. Careful inspections of the aircraft, precise loading of cargo, weight and balance calculations, and most importantly, prayer, are all important elements of a successful mission.
Clear prop.
NMA pilots must take precautions to ensure safety on every flight. As we lifted off from the airport that morning and turned south along the Rift Valley, I couldn't help but rejoice in the Lord for giving us the tools and resources needed to accomplish our goal of reaching the unreached for Christ. Flying out of Mbeya, we tracked the dense tropical jungle along the Great Lake of Tanganyika that presented the great pioneer missionary Dr. David Livingstone with insurmountable challenges. With great anticipation, we touched down safely on the little airstrip resting among the foothills of Kasulu. The pastors greeted us with excitement. You could see in their faces that they were expecting a great week. After securing the aircraft and loading the Jesus Film equipment into the Land Cruiser, we headed off down the dusty dirt road to Kanazi. During our 9 days of training and evangelism, we organized 2 churches, helped to complete the roof of a remote church, showed the Jesus Film to almost 10,000 people, and saw over 1,200 people come to receive Christ. The zone was organized for the first time, and leaders were appointed to key positions on the district. The local people have been building their own churches by digging mud from the soil, forming bricks, and baking them to build the walls. The district provides funds to build the rafters and roofing. We are seeing new churches literally spring forth from the earth. The most moving night of film showings was in the remote village of Mwali. After 3 hours of winding through the bush, following footpaths not made for vehicles, and at times just breaking down the brush, we finally arrived at our destination. We set the equipment, trained the local lay people in personal evangelism, then joined hands in prayer and dedicated the evening to God. When the film reached the suffering of Christ, we heard crying in the crowd. As Jesus was nailed to the cross, the crying turned to weeping. Pastor Wrighton sensed the moving of the Spirit and asked me to stop the film. The people flooded into the lights, falling on their knees in remorse and crying out to God to forgive them of their sins. The Spirit of God continued to move through the crowd as we prayed and counseled with the new believers. There was one young girl who remained sobbing on her knees. I knelt and prayed with her. My heart sank as I saw her deformed little arms and legs. She was crippled, and I knew her life would always be filled with suffering. After praying to receive Christ as her personal Savior, Dorothea wiped the tears from her face and shuffled away through the dirt, disappearing behind the legs of the crowd. I could only pray that we had brought Dorothea hope in life through Jesus Christ. Her life on this earth will never be pleasant, but with the love of Christ, she has a new hope that someday she will reach heaven where there is no more crying and there is no more pain. This is the reason NMA is flying to the darkest corners of Africa. It confirms in my heart God's call on my life to serve Him as a missionary pilot with the Church of the Nazarene, sharing Christ's love with others.
Wanna be ready, I gotta be ready to fly away to my home. My house is in order, my faith holding steady. I fly away to my home. I'll fly away